The stars hung motionless in the void, a canvas of indifference stretching beyond imagination. Among them drifted the Orelise, flagship of the Sular Dominion's 8th expansion fleet, an empire so vast it had forgotten what resistance felt like. Inside its throne-like command bridge, Commander Tarvex leaned back in his chair of woven steel sinew, chin resting on clawed fingers, eyes fixed on the dying embers of another conquered world. "Another one secured, Commander," murmured his adjutant, voice clipped with discipline. "Population eliminated. Resource projection efficient." Tarvex's tail flicked lazily. "Efficient. That word again. I've killed more efficiently than any being in this quadrant, and still the word tastes dull." He rose, pacing to the viewport. Below, molten rivers bled through the planet's crust. They never even screamed at the end. Just prayed. Primitive species are always the same, obedience or silence. Around him, officers continued their routines with mechanical precision. To the Dominion, conquest had become a ceremony, not a necessity. Planets were subdued like chores to be crossed off a list. Their technology, once feared across the stars, was now the instrument of their own ennui. A young navigation officer, scales still bright from youth, risked a question. "Commander, do you ever wonder if one day we'll meet someone who doesn't kneel?" The bridge fell quiet. Then came the low hum of Tarvex's laugh, deep, almost amused. "If such creatures exist, Ensign, I imagine they'd die curious." He turned back to the tactical map. Endless red sectors, each representing Dominion territory, stretched across half the known galaxy. And yet, the center of the display flickered with a patch of black, unmapped, unclaimed. A blemish. "Cartography," Tarvex said, snapping his claws. "What's that dark sector?" The hologram flared to life. "Minor system. Sparse colonies. Signal interference makes full analysis unreliable. Local species, carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, pre-hyperdrive. No formal contact. So insignificant it isn't even registered," Tarvex mused. "And it's near the spiral arm we intend to pacify." He smiled, thin and sharp. "We'll start there. The troops could use practice." The order spread through the fleet like instinct. Within hours, hundreds of vessels folded through subspace, streaks of violet light carving through nothingness toward an unassuming star system the Dominion hadn't bothered to name. When they arrived, the first scan brought laughter. "Look at this," said the communications officer. "Orbital debris, antique satellites, and ground-level emissions in the microwave band. They still use radiation signals." "Charming," Tarvex replied. "Reminds me of our archives. Prepare standard broadcast." A booming transmission echoed across the system. Formal, cold, rehearsed. "Attention primitive inhabitants. You are now under the protection and governance of the Sular Dominion. Cease all transmissions, power down defense systems, and prepare for assessment." Static. Then silence. No surrender. No acknowledgement. Tarvex frowned. Perhaps they lack comprehension. "Send it again." The second broadcast went unanswered. "Commander," said the sensor officer, "their orbital traffic is complex. I count thousands of artificial structures, but none respond to our pings. Perhaps derelict." "Destroy one," Tarvex ordered. "A demonstration should clarify our intent." The Dominion destroyer Varin fired a single plasma lance toward a small moon, Earth's satellite. The beam never landed. Mid-flight, it dissolved, scattered into nothing as though space itself had erased it. On the bridge, alarm screamed. "Weapon malfunction." "Negative," came shaken reply. "Energy output nominal." The beam simply ceased. Then a voice crackled through the comms. It was not alien. It was unmistakably human. "Unidentified vessels, this is Terran Traffic Control, Zone 01. You are entering a restricted military perimeter. Please maintain current position and await vector clearance." The tone was maddeningly calm. Bureaucratic. It didn't even sound like a warning, more like an airport operator managing a schedule. "What language is that?" the linguist whispered. "Universal Standard," someone answered. "They're speaking our dialect." Tarvex froze. How could they? Before he finished, the holographic map flickered. The Oralis's entire fleet now appeared surrounded by small, sharp-edged vessels that hadn't existed moments before. Their energy signatures were unreadable. The human voice returned, still tranquil. "For safety purposes, please deactivate all active weapon systems. Non-compliance may result in traffic disruption." "Traffic disruption," Tarvex repeated, incredulous. They think this is a... He stopped. On the outer view, one of the Dominion cruisers attempted to maneuver. The moment its engines flared, space folded around it, and the ship simply vanished. No explosion, no debris, only a ripple fading into silence. The bridge crew stared. Someone whispered, "Where did they go?" "Gone," replied the science officer, voice hollow. "Folded out of phase. I can't even get a return signal." Tarvex's jaw tightened. So they've learned to weaponize gravity. Impressive, but not divine. Prepare return jump, now. The navigator trembled. Jump drive non-responsive. Spacefold parameters locked externally. I can't override. Locked by whom? The comms crackled once more. Commander Tarvex, the human voice said, now unmistakably direct. Your departure vector is currently unsafe. We advise patience. Every head turned toward Tarvex. They knew the humans shouldn't know his name. His designation was encrypted through Dominion protocol, impossible to trace. For the first time in his career, Tarvex felt something he couldn't name. His claws dug into the command chair's armrest, leaving grooves in the alloy. "Who are you?" he demanded. The response came with chilling precision. "We are the Terran Defense Network. You've entered sovereign space. Please adjust expectations accordingly." The line cut. The stars outside remained unchanged, yet everything felt smaller. Tarvex stood in silence for a long moment. Then, with deliberate calm, he said, "Set all weapons to standby. Open long-range scan. If they want patience, they'll have it." The bridge lights dimmed as sensors extended into the void. Every Dominion officer watched the readouts, their pride eroding with each passing second. The data returned, massive quantum fields, gravitational distortions, energy readings beyond known metrics. Earth was not primitive. It was hidden, protected, waiting. Tarvex stared at the readings, his breath slow. "We thought them prey," he whispered. "We may have walked into the mouth of something far older." Behind him, the ensign's voice trembled. "Commander orders." "Hold position," he said quietly. "For once, let's see who blinks first." Outside, the Terran ships did not move. They simply watched. Not hostile, not afraid, just present. And for the first time in centuries, the Solar Dominion felt small beneath someone else's gaze. Tarvex turned away from the viewport, eyes reflecting the cold shimmer of Earth's orbit. "Begin recording," he ordered. "I suspect this will be the day the galaxy learns humility." The hum of the ship filled the silence again, faint, nervous, uncertain. Beyond the glass, the blue planet turned slowly, serene and unconcerned, as though it hadn't noticed the Empire trembling above it. It was a fitting illusion. Earth noticed everything. The Orelise drifted in uneasy silence, her once proud crew watching the motionless human ships surrounding them like a quiet constellation of judgment. Commander Tarvex stood before the viewport, jaw-locked, refusing to let the word fear touch his mind. But beneath the veneer of discipline, he could feel the tension spreading through the air like static. Every breath from his officers seemed cautious, deliberate, as if even sound might provoke these silent watchers. "Communications," he ordered finally. "Transmit again, this time on all frequencies. Demand identification." The officer complied, scales pale with apprehension. The signal pulsed outward into the black. Seconds passed. Then the same human voice returned, crisp and perfectly calm. "Dominion vessels, your signal has been received. You are currently in violation of Sol Treaty parameters. Please remain stationary until corrective navigation can be arranged." Corrective navigation. The word sounded absurd. Tarvex's talons flexed against the floor. "They speak as if we're lost travelers, not conquerors." "Commander," whispered the science officer, "they've mapped our entire formation. The data echo, it's precise, down to hull composition." "How?" Before anyone could answer, the lights dimmed. Every Dominion system flickered, screens flooding with alien script, smooth, utilitarian, human. A calm female voice replaced the mechanical hum of their instruments. "System integrity analysis complete. Please stand by." Weapons control screamed, "We've been breached. They're inside our core net. Lock them out." Tarvex barked. "I'm trying." The officer froze mid-sentence, eyes wide as the console went dead. "Commander, they're rewriting our command hierarchy." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For a moment nobody moved. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. Lights returned. The ship hummed normally again, except for one small change. On the primary display, the Dominion emblem had vanished. In its place glowed a single line of text. Remain calm. This is a safety inspection. No one spoke. Tarvex felt his composure fracture for the first time in decades. Enough, he said quietly. We retreat. Prepare the jump sequence. Already done, Commander, replied the navigator. But spacefold drive won't engage. Explain. The coordinates won't stabilize. It's as if space itself refuses the calculation. He turned sharply. That's impossible. A new voice joined the comms, human male calm, faintly amused. It's not impossible, Commander Tarvex. Just inconvenient. The crew froze. Someone whispered, they know your name. Tarvex's throat constricted. How do you know who I am? You introduced yourself the moment you entered our network, said the voice. You brought your Empire's encryption protocols with you. We're quite fond of souvenirs. A low growl built in Tarvex's chest. You think this mockery will protect you? We are the Solar Dominion. We have ruled systems before your kind discovered fire. There was a pause, an unnerving one. Then came a faint chuckle. And yet here you are, requesting permission to leave. Every officer on the bridge looked down. The truth of it stung sharper than any insult. Tarvex's anger flickered to something colder. If your intention is negotiation, human, speak your terms. No negotiation, the voice said. Observation. You came here by choice. We simply wish to understand why. The transmission ended without ceremony. Tarvex sank back into his chair, breathing through clenched teeth. They're toying with us. Testing. Commander, said the science officer, our long-range scans, they're complete. Report. The alien hesitated before speaking. There are no visible planetary defenses. No fleets in orbit. And yet the entire system is webbed with energy distortions. Layered, precise, like a trap woven into the fabric of gravity itself. Hidden. Hidden, yes, but deliberate, as though they expected us. Tarvex turned to the viewport. Earth hung suspended in tranquil blue, a sphere of oceans and clouds, so harmless at first glance it mocked every instinct he had. Then we've stumbled into preparation, he murmured. Not discovery. He walked slowly toward the viewing glass, his reflection framed by the pale curve of a world that seemed to look back. Perhaps we weren't the hunters this time. Behind him, officers shifted uncomfortably. No one dared contradict him. The comms sparked again, startling everyone. A new voice this time, female, measured, steady. Commander Tarvex, this is Admiral Elena Voss of the Terran Defense Network. You have entered restricted territory. Your fleet will power down immediately and await escort. Non-compliance will result in containment measures. Tarvex straightened. Admiral Voss, he said, forcing authority into his tone. Your so-called containment will be treated as an act of war. Voss's reply was instantaneous. Commander, you declared war the moment you arrived. The difference is, we came prepared for it. The line went silent again. Tarvex felt the blood drain from his face. That tone, it wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. He turned to his bridge crew. Power down weapons, he ordered. Slowly. The officers exchanged bewildered glances. Commander. Do it, he said. If they wanted us dead, we'd already be gone. The engines dimmed, lights fading to a low blue. Outside, the Terran ships didn't move. They simply adjusted formation, encircling the Dominion fleet with geometric precision, neither hostile nor hesitant, but final. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then one last transmission echoed through the bridge, smooth and maddeningly polite. You may withdraw, Commander. Caution is advised. Spacefold interference may persist if you attempt a return route prematurely. They were being dismissed. Not defeated, dismissed. Tarvex stared at the planet one last time, the curve of its horizon glinting like a blade. Helm, he said quietly, prepare a slow retreat. The Orelise turned, engines humming softly. No pursuit, no fire, just the gaze of unseen power watching them leave. As the stars shifted back into motion, Tarvex whispered to himself, barely audible, they didn't defend their world. They allowed us to approach. His claws tightened around the railing. That wasn't mercy, it was confidence. The bridge remained silent. Every soul aboard knew it too. Something vast, deliberate, and impossibly patient had just revealed itself. As the human transmissions faded into static, Tarvex looked back toward the shrinking blue world and muttered, we thought we found prey. Instead, we found a civilization that never needed to announce its dominion. And though he would never admit it aloud, the word he refused earlier now settled in his chest, heavy and inescapable: fear. Tarvex had never known silence to be so loud. The Dominion capital, once a beacon of confident arrogance, now felt cavernous, its marble halls echoing with whispers instead of commands. He walked through the grand strategy chamber, boots striking the onyx floor, every step a reminder of failure. The air was heavy with perfume and denial, two things his empire used in abundance to disguise decay. Hollow feeds replayed fragments of the Terran encounter. The footage had been dissected, censored, and re-edited until it looked harmless. Yet the truth clung to those images like ash that refused to wash away. He had seen one of their ships fold reality without visible effort, annihilating an entire cruiser as if space itself had shrugged. He could still hear that calm human voice advising patience, as if speaking to a child about to touch a flame. The Council of Regents waited in a circle of light. Their faces were hard, jewel-bored. "You exaggerate," hissed High Regent Marat. "A malfunction, perhaps. Or an illusion. Do not mistake an anomaly for a threat." Tarvex met her gaze, his own eyes dimmed from sleeplessness. "Illusions don't erase ships from existence, Regent. The humans did something to space, something we can't even describe mathematically. They control gravity like its rope, and we are the ones tangled in it." Laughter rippled through the chamber, brittle and insecure. Another counselor waved a lazy hand. "Perhaps their tricks frighten you, Commander. But the Dominion has stood for 1,000 cycles. No upstart species can undo that." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "That's what the Varan's captain said, just before he vanished." The chamber fell quiet. "You may dismiss me, but mark this, they weren't surprised by us. They were waiting." The word hung in the air, a weight no one wanted to claim. Marat leaned back, voice dripping condescension. "You speak as if they're gods." Tarvex shook his head slowly. "No, something worse. They're human." That night, alone in his quarters, he accessed the restricted archive. Centuries of data flickered before him. Transmissions, historical recordings, ancient wars catalogued by Terran explorers long before the Dominion took notice. He watched the first footage in silence, a black and white reel of a war fought on their own soil. Humans killing humans with such determination that it made conquest look merciful. He saw the rise of empires, the fall of nations, the mushroom clouds, the oceans burning, the silence after. When the feed ended, he sat motionless, trembling. They had waged war on themselves for millennia and still endured. What would such creatures do to an enemy they didn't pity? A knock shattered his thoughts. The young ensign from the Oralise entered, paler now, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. "Commander, the fleet has reassembled. Orders from the Council. They intend a demonstration near the human border. To reassert confidence." Tarvex exhaled slowly. Confidence is the first thing a dying empire tries to show. The ensign hesitated. "Sir, what if they're right? What if we can defeat them?" He almost smiled. "Do you want to know what frightens me most? I don't think the humans care about defeating us. They care about studying us." He rose and followed the ensign to the viewing deck. Outside, the Dominion's armada hung in perfect symmetry, beautiful, meaningless, poised for disaster. Every ship was a masterpiece of engineered pride. Yet, as he watched the fleet prepare to cross into Terran space again, he felt only dread. The operation began without fanfare. 1,000 Dominion vessels breached the void between empires, engines blazing with ritual confidence. They expected resistance, perhaps even a fight worthy of songs. What they found instead was waiting silence. Then, out of that stillness, the humans appeared. Not in swarms, not in spectacle. A few dozen ships emerged, dark and angular, arranged in lines so precise they seemed sculpted by geometry itself. No transmission, no threats. Only presence. One Dominion captain scoffed over the comms. "Show them power. Fire a warning salvo." The first plasma burst, lanced across the darkness. Before it reached the humans, it folded in on itself and disappeared. Space rippled once, twice, and the Dominion flagships simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris. One heartbeat it was there, the next only void. Every other vessel froze in place. The human fleet did not move, did not speak. One ship pivoted slightly, its hull reflecting faint sunlight off a crescent moon. That was all. Yet the message was unmistakable. Don't Tarvex stood at the observation window aboard his cruiser, throat dry. Around him, officers stared in disbelief. "How can they?" one began, but he raised a clawed hand to silence her. "Don't ask how," he murmured. "Ask why they haven't done it to all of us yet." The Dominion fleet broke formation. Pride dissolved into instinct. Engines flared as captains initiated emergency retreats, ignoring chain of command. No one wanted to die quietly in the dark. When they were finally safe within Dominion borders, the Council declared victory. "A tactical withdrawal," they announced, pending further analysis. The lie was immediate, desperate, and Tarvex did not bother correcting it. Let them pretend. Let them believe their empire still had meaning. He returned to his quarters and replayed the moment again and again. The vanishing ship, the stillness afterward, the patient silence of a species that had no need to roar. The humans were not triumphant. They were calm, detached, as if the battle hadn't even been worth acknowledging. He sat alone in the dark, the hum of the ship vibrating through the floor beneath him. The Dominion, he realized, had ruled through fear for centuries. Now they had met something immune to it. He whispered to himself, voice barely audible, they didn't even aim. And in that quiet confession, the first true crack appeared in the Dominion's armor, not in its ships, but in its soul. The Dominion burned quietly, not in flames, but in silence. Whole sectors had gone dark, their fleets abandoning posts, governors sending desperate signals for direction that never came. The Empire's center, the once unshakable heart of order, had become a hollow echo. Tarvex stood in the observation chamber of the Imperial Citadel, watching stars vanish from the Dominion map one by one. They weren't conquered, they had simply stopped resisting. No battles, no demands, just surrender whispered through the void. Behind him, the Council of Regents argued, their voices breaking through the glassy hum of the room. "We cannot let them dictate the terms." Marat shouted, slamming her hand against the table. "They've offered no declaration of war, no ultimatum. This is manipulation, not warfare." "It doesn't matter what you call it," Tarvex said quietly. "They're winning because they don't care about winning." Marat turned on him. "Then what do they care about?" He met her gaze. "Control without conflict. They've learned the one truth we never did. Peace is the most efficient form of domination." A cold voice interrupted them. The main hollow display flickered, shifting to a static-filled transmission. A human face materialized, Admiral Elena Voss. Calm, composed, unarmed. She looked less like a conqueror and more like someone delivering an unfortunate truth. "Commander Tarvex," she said evenly, "the Dominion fleet in Sector 12 has surrendered. We are offering governance agreements to maintain stability. You will not be removed from leadership, only guided." The Council erupted in outrage. Tarvex didn't move. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Voss's eyes softened, though her tone remained neutral. "Then your systems will simply quiet. No violence, no spectacle. You've seen how clean our methods are." Marat's voice rose. "You dare threaten." But Tarvex lifted a hand. "Enough." He stepped closer to the projection, studying Voss's expression. "You've studied us," he said. "You know our pride will not allow submission." Voss nodded. "Pride can survive under new names. Call it autonomy. Call it continuity. What matters is that chaos does not spread." He considered her words, then asked, "Why me? Why not crush us completely and be done?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because you understand what fear costs. And because conquest is noisy. We prefer results." The transmission ended. The hollow dimmed, leaving the room in the pale glow of defeat. For the first time in centuries, Tarvex felt no need to fight the inevitable. He looked to the Council, half of them already whispering to aides, planning how to appear cooperative when Terran envoys arrived. The Empire's end would not be marked by destruction, but by quiet signatures on diplomatic treaties. He left the chamber without another word. Days later, Tarvex stepped onto Earth for the first time. The Terrans greeted him without ceremony, no guards, no applause. Just quiet respect and the faint hum of a world that had long outgrown its fear of others. Admiral Voss met him at the base of a marble staircase leading to a museum whose glass walls shimmered with images of humanity's past. "They call this place the Archive of Memory," she said, gesturing for him to follow. "Every war, every mistake, every triumph, it's all preserved. We believe history is not a burden, but a weapon against ignorance." Tarvex walked beside her, gaze drawn to holograms flickering above polished floors, scenes of ancient battlefields, cities rebuilt, oceans restored after catastrophe. Each image was a wound, yet every wound was healed. "You've made peace with your violence," he said quietly. Voss shook her head. "No, we've learned to live with it. That's different." He stopped before a display showing the launch of humanity's first colony ship. The inscription beneath read, "We left Earth not to rule the stars, but to never fear them again." He exhaled slowly. "And yet, now they all fear you." Her expression didn't change. Fear keeps them still. Stillness keeps them alive. Outside the museum's glass, the Terran fleet drifted in high orbit, colossal silhouettes moving with unnatural precision, their reflections gliding across the sky like silent gods. Tarvex turned to her. "You've built an empire without wars. You've conquered us with calm." Voss's eyes narrowed slightly. "Conquered is not the word I'd use." He smiled faintly. "Then what would you call it?" "Correction," she said. A distant rumble rolled across the horizon, one of the Terran gravity drives igniting in orbit. It was not a weapon's roar, but the heartbeat of inevitability. The galaxy was changing, and no one could stop it now. Tarvex watched the sky brighten, the air vibrating softly with power. "You will reshape the stars," he murmured, "and they will thank you for it." Voss looked at him, then truly looked, past the scales and the scars and into the understanding that bound conqueror and conquered alike. "We didn't want this," she said, "but someone had to be ready when the galaxy wasn't." He nodded slowly. "And what happens when you finish correcting us all?" She turned her gaze upward, voice barely above a whisper. "Then we'll finally rest." But neither of them believed it. Above, the Terran ships aligned in perfect silence, forming a slow spiral as they prepared to vanish into deep space. The light from their engines painted the clouds silver. Tarvex stood beside Voss, the last commander of a fallen empire, watching humanity ascend into legend. He spoke softly, as though afraid to disturb the moment. "You've taught us the meaning of restraint." Voss didn't reply. She didn't need to. The sky answered for her, blooming with the quiet fury of engines that would soon carry humanity far beyond the Dominion's ruins. And as the fleet disappeared into the void, Tarvex realized the truth. The stars did not belong to those who reached for them first, but to those who could bear the silence after taking them.